winter's day in a deep and dark December.
Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KidBadger.com, here today to share the story of my sub 6 mile hike, as well as my loadout from said adventure. We'll go ahead and start with the adventure. Winter 2019, buddy of mine, Bill Rapier, says, hey, do you want to go hike Goat Peak? And I'm like, sure. I have no idea what it is. But I'm like, yeah, sure, sounds good. He's like, cool. This date, this time, meet here at 7 a.m. I'm like, all right, sounds good. As we get closer, kind of feeling lazy. I'm like, hey, so is this still going? I'm calling him the night before. He says, Ivan, what kind of question is that? I'm like, I deserve that. He's like, yeah, if we need to turn back, we'll turn back. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So got up the next morning, drove up north to his house, met up at 7, and we went, picked up another friend, Jake Hoback of Hoback Knives, and headed over to Clark Fork. Just outside town, we set to the trail, which is basically all up. Right outside town is the trail for Goat Peak, and it just goes up and up. Initially, because the snow actually wasn't very deep, went ahead and just hiked in boots with poles and slowly made our way up, getting higher and higher and higher. Lost the trail here and there, kind of forged new ones, but yeah, kept going up. Eventually we got to the point where the snow was pretty much requiring snowshoes, put those on, continued heading up, going up, and eventually it just got really, really steep, slow going. Finally though, made it up on top of a false summit. By then we had burned through a lot of hours. I want to say we started off around probably like 10 in the morning, something like that. And by the time we got to like that false summit, I want to say it was probably already like 3 in the afternoon. Finally dropped down into the saddle, and it's like, okay, we need to make a decision. Sun's going to be setting within half an hour, and we're still about a kilometer away from the peak. We put it to a vote. Ultimately, we decided to turn around. Frankly, that was probably the best decision. To make it that last kilometer, realistically, it would have been probably about 2 hours to get up there. And keep in mind, the sun was going to set in about 30 minutes anyway. So as it stood, we ended up turning around, stopped, grabbed some food, which was good. I will say I waited a little too long to put gloves on, and I paid for that in a big way. But started heading back down and eventually made it back down to our vehicle. All said and done, we covered under 6 miles, and it took us almost 9 hours. About, 3,900 vertical feet. And snowshoeing on groomed trails, that's one thing. Snowshoeing up a mountain, completely different. But through that experience, I definitely had some takeaways with the gear I brought, and we will speak to those. We'll go ahead and start with what I had on kind of from the bottom up. For boots, I was wearing these Solomon's. They are Gore-Tex, pretty waterproof. I probably need to waterproof them again, but I had these in conjunction with these, I believe, crocodile gaiters by Outdoor Research. Together, they definitely did a pretty good job. Saved me from just filling my boots with snow. I will say these are pretty clutch. As far as socks, I don't remember if these are merino or some kind of wannabe merino, but I ended up wearing these. And it's really important to, one, be able to layer in such a way that help your body regulate temperature, especially during high output stuff. So underneath my pants, I was wearing these, which are I've had them forever. Back when Smart Wool was actually Smart Wool, I think before they sold out, I ended up getting a pair of their long johns. So I was wearing these merino long johns. Over that, I had this pair of Raider field pants by Prometheus Design Works. It's a soft shell, and largely the snow, when it did start coming down, It was cold enough to where it was dry, so it would pretty much just brush off of these pants. Did a good job. And then in addition to that, just the ability to wick from the base layer, that merino base layer, through these served me really good going through there. As far as a top, I ended up wearing this. This is one of the, I think the like 100 weight or something like that. It's a merino base layer, long sleeve from First Spear. I just wore this, and then over the top of it, I ended up wearing this, which is the Beyond shell. It is basically kind of a wind rain layer, really lightweight, and it was enough to where I could, one, mechanically vent. Moving up, man, get hot really fast. And so being able to unzip the entire thing, have it open, did a really good job helping me regulate, but at the same time cut wind so I didn't just get robbed of all my heat. And then whenever we stopped, if I needed a little extra warmth, I could easily throw the hood on. Speaking of hoods, you lose tons of body temperature through your head. To that end, I ended up with this, the AG watch cap by Prometheus Design Works. Honestly, it spent most of its time, at least on the way up, just stuffed into a pocket. Anytime we would stop, I would throw this on and usually throw the hood on from that Beyond shell, and that would keep me warm while we weren't moving. And then as soon as we started moving again, I would go ahead and take this off. This made it really easy to regulate my body temperature without having to actually take off, put on different layers. Being able to just throw this on, especially in conjunction with a hood, depending on wind, did a great job for me. I also wore definitely not cold weather gloves, but these Pig SKD Tactical Pig Delta Utility gloves. They are pretty thin. They do have touch capacitive fingers, which I really like, but more than anything, they're basically a contact layer. So if I accidentally put my hand down or just grabbing the trekking poles I was using, it didn't just freeze my hands. These did a good job for me to that end, as long as we were active and moving. Once the hike got real, you needed snowshoes. I ended up using these by MSR. A while back, they actually got broken here, and I had fixed them with a zip tie. Somewhere along the lines, that zip tie broke, but they still worked for me. I will say, with the weight and with the density of the snow, probably could have used longer, bigger snowshoes. Was definitely sinking in some. And the other thing, this back strap on that one made it. Whereas when we got down, fortunately it wasn't until the very end, but taking this thing off, just the cold use, whatever it was, this thing snapped. But they got me through the adventure. As far as other layers that I actually used, once we were getting pretty close to the top, it was getting really, really cold, and then the wind kicked up. And I had brought these, I'd made sure they were accessible, and I ended up using these OR mitts. Mitts are amazing in that rather than having gloves and each of your fingers kind of on its own, obviously all your fingers are together, help kind of retain some of that warmth, and again, waterproof. These did a good job for me. I will say, when we had stopped and decided to come back down, I was like, you know, I don't really need these on right now. Like, I'm gonna just hang out and eat some. By the time I put these on, my hands were hurting, like in a bad way, and it took quite a while for them to finally warm up. But these definitely went far in warming my hands up and keeping them warm, and still just being able to have just gross motor function of being able to just hold on to those trekking poles. Coming back down, as far as layers go, I pretty much wore everything I had worn previously, with the addition of this right here, which is the Beast Hoodie by Prometheus Design Works. I will say a fault is it is not really compressible. What you see is what you get. Like, you can't make this smaller, like some sort of puff piece, whether it's down or synthetic. But this layered under one over that merino wool shirt and underneath that Beyond shell, it did a good job. Kept me cozy Plenty of insulation, still ability to wick, pull moisture away if I started overheating, and did a good job for me, largely just on the way down. Let's go ahead and speak real quick to weapons. I usually carry weapons pretty much everywhere, to include out of doors, especially up North Idaho, moose, bear, mountain lion, wolves, all that stuff. And would rather have them and not need them. I ended up with two. One, I had this Glock 17, Surefire X300, and a RMR. It was riding inside a Safariland ALS holster, which I like those holsters, but here's the rub. Eventually, I looked down and this thing had just completely filled with snow. RMR was pretty much useless at that point. And honestly, the irons were too. Basically, you had 17 rounds to hopefully point shoot and solve whatever problem. Maybe in that time, some of that snow would come out of the RMR. Who knows, but it was definitely a learning experience on that one. I also had this right here, which is the Henry All-Weather 4570. Kept it slung basically across the front of me, and because it was slung like this, eventually the muzzle got full of snow. And I was like, damn, I should probably get rid of that. And so I was going to tape it up. I think one of us had a little bit of rigger's tape. I was like, I should tape that up or put an earplug in it or something like that. So I was like, let me just knock that snow out real quick. Started slamming the side of the gun. Sure enough, front sight came out of the dovetail, never to be seen again. How did this happen? I don't know. I don't know if it had something to do with the cold. These usually have to actually get pushed through with a punch. I have no idea, but it happened. So I basically had 5 rounds of 4570 to point shoot with, which honestly, if it came to using this, that's probably how it would be used. But that definitely happened. I talked to them. They said it should not have happened. It doesn't need to be staked or anything like that. They're going to get another one sent out. But for whatever reason, that happened. After having that happen, I would say probably want to actually put a rail on this and an optic. And you're like, oh, optics can fail. Well, obviously iron sights can fail too. I will say with an optic, especially some sort of tube, whether it's actually like a prism where it actually has glass and you have etched reticle, or even a red dot. Even a red dot, even if that thing goes down, you still have basically a tube you can look through. Again, gross sight picture, but better than nothing. As far as other gear for this outing, the whole time I ended up carrying this, which is the Shadow Pack by Prometheus Design Works. I ended up putting the hip belt on there, in part because you can run holsters on it. So I had this, even though it filled up with snow. Did not work out that well for me. On the back, there's this panel where it makes it really easy to put stuff that you want pretty quick access to. Some things I brought and didn't use is these Outdoor Research. It's basically a hard shell pants. They zip on in case things ended up getting really wet. Fortunately, it was pretty dry with the snow, but I brought these in case. I also brought, didn't need it, but brought it, my Cashmere Schma by PDW. And as far as water goes, I've learned my lesson in winter by having uninsulated water bottles. So I ended up bringing both of these. This one, you kind of pay for it in weight. This one's really nice though. You don't have to unscrew a lid. Basically open this cap and press a button. You can drink out of it, stow it again. And past that, I brought a number of other things that I was like, I hope I don't need these, but I will bring them just in case. One of which is this Z-Fold Thermarest ground pad, basically. If one, we're gonna be somewhere for a while, be able to sit on something and not get wet, stay insulated. And if things really went south and we had to spend the night up there, yeah, keep me off the ground, keep me insulated. As far as extra layers go, what I ended up bringing was kind of a spare set of clothes, more or less. Not super warm stuff, but basically a set of dry stuff. One of which is this Helium-2 by Outdoor Research, basically a little rain shell, compressible. I also brought a pair of Gore-Tex socks because if we got to a point where I needed to change my socks, they're probably going to be wet. My boots are going to be wet, so I didn't want to have everything wet as soon as I put them back on, so I'd be able to throw those on. I also brought another pair of pants. Again, kind of a soft shell material. These are the Eddie Bauer Guide Pro pants, I believe they are. And then brought a top warming layer. Some of the waffle pattern by Patagonia. And also tucked away, I'm glad I did not need this, I had this Kifaru Whoopee. If things got really bad, that was in there as well. On or inside the PDW pack, they have this panel you can pull out. I have a bunch of med gear in there as well. And then also inside here, I had another set of socks in here, higher merino wool socks. And then I brought a stove, MSR Whisperlight International with gasoline, because even if it's cold, this thing will work. And some mundane stuff like tissues / toilet paper. And then inside this DACA pouch, I have a external battery pack for my phone to charge it, because one, my phone controls different things, to include my camera. Again, being able to get out messages, get out calls if need be, emergency stuff. Didn't want a dead phone, so brought this. And then lastly, brought this cook set pot for being able to melt water, because I was only bringing those 2 water bottles. And in addition to that, it's full of food, to include a thing of top ramen. And that right there is kind of what was loaded up in this pack. Overall, pretty rad adventure. On the one hand, it's really good to have friends that will push you and challenge you. To that end, Bill and Jake definitely did that. And I'm looking forward to the next time when we can get up there and hopefully summit Goat Peak. Anytime you get out though, it gives you the opportunity to use gear the way it was intended, or maybe the way it wasn't intended, but to basically shake things out and exploratory learning. See what kind of layers work well for you with respect to your exertion levels, like what can maybe be improved, or to that end, see things that just somehow crop up and you're like, I knew that was possible, didn't really expect it to happen. Like the RMR getting filled with snow. I didn't expect it to happen as fast as it did. And it's one of those, like, what are you gonna do? If that is your solution to carrying a firearm, like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna continually just blow it out? Are you gonna figure out some sort of holster that's actually covered over the top? I don't know. Maybe don't carry a pistol with an RMR. Who knows? But through those different things, you end up with, exploratory learning. And it's good. I definitely think it is. And I would encourage all of you to go out and have some adventures. Take some gear out, shake it out, see how it does for you. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Gazing from my window into